Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another Divided We Stand. Today, we'll be talking about a multitude of things, but first I'd like to set my camera correctly so that I can actually be seen.
Yeah.
No, we're okay now. So,
no, we're not.
First of all, again, good evening, everybody. It's great to see everyone. I want to thank everybody who has subscribed to our Facebook page. Dave, as you know, our membership has grown probably tenfold in the last week, so that's really good news, and people are really getting involved. So that's a good thing, as always. We also, as usual, we are broadcasting on YouTube and Periscope, and we've had some good things happen with that too, because we've had a lot of Periscope viewers in the last couple of weeks. So we appreciate all of you, whether it's Facebook, YouTube, or Periscope. Also want to say that if you enjoy what you're watching, please subscribe, and if you think of it, give us a thumbs up, and if you don't like it, give us a thumbs down. So we want to be fair. So anyway, Dave, first of all, it's good to see you again. How are you?
Except my camera, my lip, my screen, but that's okay because I can see myself now doing something delayed, but it's fine. I just, you know what I mean? I'm going to fire you. I'm going to have to fire you. Out there, Brian, take it over right now, please, 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 please. There we are, but we're not there yet.
We're buffering
Yet. He's sticking out.
All right, I'm going to try one thing, Dave, because this is a live show. I am going to try to pull a camera out and see if that reduces the load on the channel. We'll see what happens if that helps.
No. And I can a little tiny. Get my fingers up now. The most is we're almost there now.
All right, we're getting closer.
I'm just being delayed.
So we'll get there, Dave. We will.
Oh, I know.
Okay.
Not the least bit worried about that.
So.
Well, I am, but that's beside which I sort of look like to myself here. I'm not the best,
right.
And he's doing it in the dark, as you notice.
All right.
It looks like the dark.
I think we're okay now. Actually, I think we're okay.
I don't know.
We don't even have to restart. So again, thank you everybody for having the patience. There's a lot of load on the computer right now because we've got a lot of things happening. Again, we got 3 channels working at once, and that's always difficult. But I think we're okay right now. And by the way, I have plenty of bandwidth, Dave, whether it's uploading or downloading.
Now, you did cancel those 2 porn channels you were going to, right?
What's the porn channels? I'm not even familiar.
Ones that you were running on the wide band.
I don't know, Dave. But in any case, Dave, seriously speaking, we might have Paul McGinley on a little bit later. He told us that he would be on. But Paul's a busy guy. He basically has 2 jobs. So sometimes he has to get his sleep or he's working. So we'll see whether he comes on or not. But in any case, the show must go on. And Dave, I want to start off by asking you a question. If Paul had been here, I'd ask the same thing to him. We've been on, I guess, for the last couple of months. And we were on as recently as last week. And I want to get your feel for the election in terms of, do you feel any better about the election now than you did last week when we went on the show? Because a lot of things have happened in the last week.
Well, if you're going to ask me this question, if the election were tomorrow, who would win? Joe Biden would win. And why I would say that? I think Donald Trump had a very bad week last week. And of course, that makes me feel very good when Donald Trump has a very bad week. So what do I mean by that? Well, 2 setbacks in the Supreme Court, the DACA decision. And of course, while he'll deny it, the idea that, Americans, if they're gay, have to be treated like Americans if they're straight. Finally, in America, that we can deal with a little bit like that. Now, on the other side, Donald Trump went to, that Tulsa, right? He was going to go on black racist. He'll tell you that he's not a racist, and he goes, and if I got my figures right, Brian, I think supposedly it held somewhere between about 19,200 people, and he flying here, all those aliens.
We're still trying, Dave. Are you there?
I'm still here. Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
I
just hanging
think
out,
we have it.
waiting until
I think we're okay.
whatever. No, now you're breaking up again.
Is my connection to you breaking up?
No, it was just whatever that. What was that in the background? That noise. It sounded like aliens landing or
No, what
something. What was
happened
that?
was I have some prepared pages here, Dave, and this goes for everybody because when I want to speak about something later in the show, I like to have them already up there. The problem is one of them had, one of those advertisements that comes on, out of nowhere 3 minutes later. You all probably have dealt with that, so we'll get there. This is what.
There's a way around that, Brian. If you weren't so cheap, you can get ad-free YouTube. But I mean, that might cost you $2, so I can
No,
understand
this isn't.
why.
This isn't YouTube. This is just on Chrome. So we can't avoid capitalism. The ads keep coming, but I think we're going to be
I
okay.
know.
We're going to be okay.
Okay, it's whatever it is. Look, we just have fun with this show, and we'll go from there. So I was saying, now I'll be serious for a moment. Yes, Donald Trump was planning this big comeback, right? Of course, it didn't really materialize, as I started to say. I believe it was 19,200, 19,400, roughly, at the Tulsa Auditorium, Center, where he was going to hold this thing. Not auditorium, center. And 6,000 showed up, which 6,000 something. There's not TikTok. That's shout out to young people. Young people are our future. That'd be great, especially if they turn out not to appreciate the grand old party and Donald Trump. But Trump, whomever, they made a classic political mistake. It doesn't matter who you are, what you do. You always underpromise and overperform. That's a standard rule of politics. And Donald Trump, being Donald Trump, we've got a million people, and that sets the expectations really high. And now they're not. And I think Donald Trump has made maybe the greatest campaign ad against Donald Trump, or a photo when he got when he got back to Washington. His ties askew. You never see that. He looked 107 years old. Certainly, it's draining. I understand that, but he's enough of an actor, enough a character to know that that's not something you do. So I think if you ask Donald Trump tonight, who's going to win, he would say, if he were honest, he's not honest. He would say Joe Biden. Now, do I want to hedge my bets? Of course I want to hedge my bets. We're living in a time when we don't know from day to day what's going to happen. We've got the virus out there. We've got a fight that I've never seen, which is very good against, or as Donald Trump would say, very, very bigly good, against racism, against some other isms out there. And Donald Trump also, I think, is making a horrible error in terms of reading the people. He got in on a racist platform. He got in on a negative platform. He got in on a platform of fear. But that's not really going to play well out there now. People realize it's not about political fear. It's about the fear of dying from COVID. It's about the fear of a black man being unable to walk necessarily the streets of America without being killed. There's real fear out there. Donald Trump tapped into these, the Mexicans and the wall and all this. So I think the con man, I don't know if people are waking up to it, but I kind of got that feeling. So I hope that answers your question. I mean, I think it's a very fair question. But yeah, I'm gonna score a bad week. And the thing that continues to amaze me is what I'm calling it Joe Biden's rope-a-dope. I think it's brilliant. Joe Biden just stays out of the way, does a little something. Trump is right now. Donald Trump is his worst enemy. Donald Trump is defeating himself. From what you hear, from what you read, from what we see in D.C., the campaign is already in disarray. However, please everyone understand, this is not a sprint. This is a marathon. So it doesn't really matter who's ahead tonight. It matters who's ahead when the final vote is counted. And I do want to address that just for a moment. It appears, and tonight we'll be seeing it play out in Kentucky. I believe, if my figures are correct, there is a predominantly black district of 161,000 voters, and they have one polling place. Now, you tell me, how can that exist in America? And I'll tell you very easily. It's a Mitch McConnell state. It's a Republican state, and they're trying to disenfranchise voters, figuring that the majority of black voters would be dead voters. So we've got that. You've got this idea of, Trump is already saying kind of this isn't going to happen. Now, the irony is that White House, not only are they full of lies, they're hypocrites, but do you realize almost everybody, Brian, works for Trump in any kind of position, including Donald Trump himself, have mailed in their votes? Pence has mailed in his votes from
We're going to get to that. If you don't mind, Dave, I'd like to save that because that's going to...
No, yeah, I do, but I don't mind to, David. No, I'm just saying, I think, so this, can you imagine? And I don't want to imagine, but it sounds real. We're probably not going to know on election night who the president is.
All right, so...
And I'll leave it, but I think it'll be Joe Biden.
Okay, right now you're still confident, as you have been, and I appreciate that, and you've had a good week. Actually, you've had a good 2 weeks. You basically have called it as far as John Roberts, so I like what you've been doing, and I do hope you're right. So that goes without saying, Dave.
Well, I will say this to everyone out there. I'm always right, except when I'm wrong.
All right. Okay, so basically, let me put the timer on me. It's only fair. I put it on Dave, so I'll put it on myself. And as usual, I'm the one who is the pessimist. And it's funny, Dave, because after looking at the events, especially what happened in Tulsa this week, you would think that I would be very, very positive about things. You had 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago with the Supreme Court, 2 victories for the good side. And then you again saw what happened in Tulsa. And he's been caught in lies. For example, I'm more optimistic. Okay, Dave. I think it has to do, in general, again, with the Republican Party, because they do work as a team. There's no doubt about that. We can look at Bill Barr, we can look at the party itself, and you can look at the White House. And as you said, this is going to be a marathon, but I think they're building this to be a marathon. And they've slipped their tentacles everywhere. And I wanted to at least show one quick video bit with Bill Barr, because I think it's important, Dave. Let me switch to Chrome here, and we'll see how this works out. And Dave, hopefully you'll be able to hear this. Okay?
Devin Nunes said there is not a more important issue. People are being censored. Conservatives are being censored. The information flowing to the American people is being censored. Are you worried about this going into the election?
Yes, I am worried about a censorship. I'm worried about a number of things going into the election. One, the censorship of robust debate. I'm also worried about undermining the public confidence in the integrity of the elections. The thing we have going for us, especially when there's intense division in the country, is that we have peaceful transfers of power, and our way of resolving it is to have an election. But when state governments start adopting these practices like mail-in ballots that open the floodgates of potential fraud, then people's confidence in the outcome of the election is going to be undermined. And that could take the country to a very dark place if we lose confidence in the outcomes of our election.
Okay, so let me just stop there, Dave, if you don't mind.
Throw up for a minute, and then I'll rejoin you. Every time. Okay.
Okay, Dave just vomited. All right, so I'm going to take another 2 minutes, if you don't mind, Dave, only because I put that on. So this is one of the reasons why I'm so worried, because first of all, he leads off by talking not about the actual mail-in, but he's worried about some type of deceit that's going to go on, as if the Democratic Party is the one we have to worry about. And then he starts talking about the mail-in, which is for the Democratic states, obviously. but it will apply obviously to the red states. And you look at what happens or is happening in Kentucky tonight, you start saying to yourself, hold it. I mean, they're still looking at the eye on the prize, and that is let's do all the possible things. Let me get myself on one screen here. They want to take care of suppressing the vote. They want to make mail-in difficulty. I'm sure they're going to try to work with the rolls. And then they're going to do all types of devious things to try to convince you that Joe Biden is the wrong guy. And there's so many other things that are involved, like Russia and China and whatnot. But the bottom line is, to answer my own question, which I ask you, I think that I feel very pessimistic about what's going to happen, because I think that what the Republicans are doing, even though it's evil, it's very methodical, and it's been very, very effective. And I think when you mentioned Kentucky tonight, that's going to give us a good indication of how they can change things. So what think you, Dave?
All right. Of course. Look, we laugh. We say you're Captain Doom and Gloom, and I'm Pollyanna in male's clothing, looking at always rose-colored glasses, the optimist. I'm going to try to play it this way. We're back to what I said, not because I'm brilliant, but this will never change. Whoever the Democratic nominee is, was, or will be, they had a job. And that job was to win in Pennsylvania, which has been a Democratic stronghold. Their job was to win in Michigan. Their job was to win in Wisconsin. Ball game over. Now, you're hearing 5 or 6 other states in play, correct?
Yes.
Now, some of them are kind of pipe dreams. I don't think Jesus Christ running as a Democrat is going to win in Texas yet, but I could be wrong. I think Florida really probably is a toss-up, but because that is one of those states where they'll hang chads and do whatever they need to do. That's right. Stacey Abrams has created this wonderful group in Georgia, but still not there in North Carolina. But other places are. So, again, how much damage can the Republicans do in Michigan? How much can they do in Pennsylvania? How much can they do in Wisconsin? There are states that are just locked up. Oregon, Washington, and California. Hell, if they could get Trump to win those states, then they you just say they're the best ever at robbing and stealing an election. See, I'm going to take a little different tactic on that, though. I think they're going to try. But I think what's even more heinous, what Robert Barr was really signaling to every Donald Trump supporter out there, this is his message. Very clearly, I think. If Donald Trump doesn't win this election, don't believe the results. That's what he was saying. Because, you listen and say, yeah, and will they do all that? But why would they give away the secrets? What they're doing is, Trump is doing it. Beavis and Butthead, his 2 sons, are doing it. Ivanka's been lost somewhere in transition. Barr is doing it. And what they're saying is basically, now, I don't think they need to say that because I don't think Trump's people are going to accept it.
But
anyway.
where do you think Barr was coming from with this censorship idea, though? Do you have any idea what he's talking about? I mean, I see the mail-in thing, which is bullshit, as we know.
Remember, look, what he's saying about the censorship, there is a belief, a big belief on Donald Trump's part and on a lot of the Republicans' part, that they are a aggrieved party. You know what they really didn't see, Brian, as crazy as this sounds, they did not see a black man being killed by a white cop. They saw a Republican being killed by a Democrat, which, of course, is just totally ludicrous. The war on Christmas. Donald Trump can't own up and say, look, we messed up. We overpromised who could be there. The kids were pretty cool. They got us. We'll come back. So they're setting the stage. We've been censored. They're not going to let us talk. I haven't seen it. Now, I'm not there. I don't know what gets censored. So maybe they do feel. Maybe they write things like, all black people should be killed. and they don't get it on YouTube or they don't get it on Facebook. Well, maybe that's a damn good thing they don't, right? So I think the censorship, it's all part and parcel. And I'm going to take just a little different tack to you. Yes, they're going to do all the stuff you said. I'm not disagreeing with it. But I really think they're going the step beyond. I think they expect to lose the election, but they want it to be cast into doubt. Now, do they want their people to take to the streets? I don't know. I almost wish they would. The army would beat them down so quickly. It wouldn't even be funny. So, I mean, it's hard. And you know, look, I try not to be evil. There's people who would argue that I am. That's okay, whatever. But I don't think the Republicans worry about that. So it's really hard for me to get in their mindset. But I would say they have a two-pronged attack: cheat, lie, steal, do ballots on the one hand. But in the event that we don't plant enough seed of doubt, that if we can't win it, cast the doubt on the winner.
Right. Well, you know, I'm just actually looking at some of the different tabs that I had prepared for tonight. Not that it really matters, Dave.
Right.
But, you know, I was just reading about Roger Stone and how it looks like there's a prosecutor who's going to testify saying that Stone was treated differently, that the Department of Justice was, you know, trying to get leniency. Wouldn't doubt that. We're talking about the mail-in ballots. And let's not forget, another reason why I'm so pessimistic is with this Jeffrey Berman. And because, you know, obviously it makes you wonder, you know, why did he get rid of it? Because at first...
He got rid because he's investigating Trump.
Right. I mean, you and I know that. But there are other things. For example, I believe there is the Turkish government has something hanging with one of their banks that they're being investigated. We don't know if Trump owes him a favor. Again, what you're saying, there's an investigation going on that was something getting closer. Did Trump know? And that's what bothers me. If they get rid of Jeffrey Berman, who by the way is a Republican who was, you know, part of Trump's team, but he seems to be somewhat honest. My question is, how did the Department of Justice really know how close they were getting? Because don't forget, Matt Whitaker was the one, I believe, and Matt Whitaker, he's a real winner too, because he's the one that placed Jeffrey Berman in there. So they don't even like their own choices until they find somebody who's dishonest enough.
When you're talking about the level of the presidency, there are no secrets, okay? Everybody's out with an agenda. So, of course, if you're working in the New York State prosecutor's office, they're Trump supporters, and they're going to overhear things and get back to them. So yes, of course. I mean, look, I worked a fairly long time as a reporter, and there were very few things I couldn't get if I knew who the other side was. And it's the same. That's never changed. Sometimes, you know, and it's getting worse because more people have an agenda. You know, I think, you know, I'm not going to talk about tonight, but just Trump has no loyalty. It's loyalty of the moment. You know, everybody's on the chopping block, et cetera, et cetera. I do wonder about Barr. This thing, I wonder about all the people who have attached themselves to Trump. Trump is going to be gone from the White House someday, right? There's the possibility that he'll be gone, I believe, will not be reelected. But if he is, and you have a Democratic House and a Senate, we're back to impeachment city, right?
But you still, in the equation that you're now drawing up, you're still keeping in mind that the Republican Party itself is plainly, utterly defending this man. So again, you get rid of him. That doesn't.
I'll tell you why they're defending him. Okay, I think, as weird as it is, see, I don't see it. I would be defending him because I don't see him being a winner. What does he deliver? You know, he doesn't have any party backing. He doesn't have any money. You know, what does he have? A dossier on all of them? No. What they're doing is they'll take anybody right now. These groups, I mean, they're all on their way, not necessarily on their way out. They're going to be outnumbered. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Why do you think Trump's cutting immigration? Yeah. There's a lot of. I mean, it's all about keeping people of color out. And it's not all for. I mean, there's an interesting thing. Is it because of racism and xenophobia? Yes, but it's also to keep out potential Democratic voters, right?
Correct.
I don't know. I've looked at his crowds. Maybe I mean, they're just not a diverse America. They're just not.
No, they're all white. I mean, I saw a crowd today, Dave, from Phoenix, Arizona, all white.
So, but I still don't get it. If I was, there's life after, but he's going to be looking for Trump unless he has fun. Something that he knows that I don't know, so that's the only thing that makes sense to me. Why would you back this man? The reports are that every senator has said he's a buffoon, he's a joke, he's this, that, the other. Every Republican senator, not Democratic senator, but he's kind of our guy, and we're going to ride him, and he's there, and we're going to prop him up. Well, how many? We'll see on the election. Two groups that were huge in Trump's win. Suburban women, or women in general, suburban women mostly, of course, and older Americans. And Biden's polling better than him in some swing states. Joe Biden is an old man, so he's going to do that. He's got a proven track record. And that's bad for Trump this time, too, Brian. He's not a surprise. There's nothing he can say. He's been president now. He can't say what he's going to do. He has to run on his record. And there are people who applaud his record, and they will vote for him. But I think there are more Americans who are not going to applaud his record, and how they're going to show that is they're going to vote against him, and we're back to round robin. What if their vote doesn't count? I keep coming back, Brian, to seeing, we've watched, and I encourage everybody to watch this. Philip Roth's Plot Against America, right?
Love it.
Simon's thing.
Love it.
And the last scene of that, if you haven't seen, I don't want to do a spoiler. It's not really a spoiler, but in the last scene, you see people break in. Obviously, they're the side against FDR, and and then there's people, and they break in and they take the ballot, and they take the voting machine out, or not machine, but the ballot thing out, and they say, "Well, so it's broken," and then you see them burning the ballot. So this has been going on for a long time. It's nothing new, but you just have to hope, as I've said before, it's a hope. If it's so overwhelming, they can't steal it, and that's what you have to make it. If we all got to get our people out to vote. We've got to and the most important thing is get people out who haven't voted before. And you may see this. You're going to see, you're seeing black leaders already saying, okay, what we've done, we're coming far, we're moving on. But you know what? We've got to vote. We've got to vote. We've got to vote. Okay. We know most of Trump's weapons, right? They're not secret. We have not seen the Obamas put a full court press on, and I believe they will. Is it this week, isn't it, that they're holding a joint online thing, Joe and Brock?
That I don't know, Dave. You would know more than I would.
That's going to be a very good thing, because, okay, let's look at it this way. Who is Donald Trump tied to? Donald Trump, right? But who is Joe Biden tied to? Barack Obama. Okay, I'd rather be tied to Barack Obama than to Donald Trump. Donald Trump has no one to tie himself to, right? And he would have fired him anyway, right?
Right.
But so he's out there, and we can't get encouraged or discouraged by the people that follow him. You basically have to believe, and you put it very well. The Republicans are going to support him. Here's the question: will they vote for him? When you go in that ballot box or the voting booth to cast your ballot, it's private, right? And I think they will, but who knows? So, at this point, the best I can say is still rather be Joe Biden tonight, thinking I want to be president than Donald.
Well, I think and I don't want to go tit for tat, but I think you nailed it earlier in the show, and you said you would worry if it were a close election, because even if we win, it looks like
the closer it is,
he'll
the closer
take
it is, the harder it is to convince either side. What if it's us? I don't see Donald Trump winning a convincing victory. I could see him winning, okay, in my scenario. But say it's not going to happen.
No, it won't be a convincing victory. But even now, like, for example, what we saw with TikTok in Tulsa, where you had 100,000 teens registering for the speech there in Tulsa, they're going to look at that. People like Stephen Miller, and he's going to say, well, look, the Democratic Party may not. They play generally. You'd have to admit that the Democrats generally play fair.
Play fairer, much
right? But what they're worried about now is something that may or may not exist. It's now these teenagers that are going to say, we know the Democrats play fair, but that doesn't mean we are going to play fair. We're going to hack and we're going to do these types of things. And, ordinarily I'd say, well, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. But this kind of plays into Bill Barr's thinking. I don't think that Bill Barr, and I may be wrong, I think Bill Barr knows that the Democrats play a fair game. So when he said censorship and he talks about mail-ins, which is bullshit, I think he's more worried about what happened in Tulsa with TikTok.
Well, I'll tell you who I would be most worried about, honestly. I think it's great. Shout out TikTok, K-pop kids, love you. Change the world. We missed out. Go for it. I'd be more worried about the Lincoln Project if I was a Republican. Those ads are brilliant.
They're great. And they're important, Dave, but that's not going to do it.
No, it's not. But Brian, it's okay. We're really in a war, except we're not shooting each other now. There are black men and women who might say they are, and they are. Okay, they are. But what I'm saying is, in general, and you need everybody, on your side that you have. You need the Lincoln Project. Have you ever seen anything in your lifetime where that kind of thing happens? They come out against, their own group. You don't know how influential George Will is. Maybe he only influences George Will. I don't know. But certainly...
the Republican intellectuals, and they're out there, but they're not a big number. But you know what? Maybe you're right. Maybe that's enough. Maybe it is.
So look at this. You get some kids who say enough is enough, right? You get George Will picking up some intellectuals. You get the Lincoln Project making a few people think. You get Mitt Romney. I'm going to go. You get George Bush. You get these Republicans that are coming out, and they don't need to pick up a lot of people. They just need to pick up some. And look, I know this for a fact. Trump will fuck up more between now and November than Biden will. Okay?
All Biden has to do is fuck up once, and they'll be all over him.
Fine. Brian, there's a lost third in America that we're not going to get back. My concern is, and I've said it before, will we ever get them back? Do I even want them back? Should they even want me back? Right?
Right.
So we're really, again, we're fighting for the third that didn't vote last time. Right now, I really believe that Trump, I don't want to use a sexual thing. Trump maxed out his vote. And if he did, and that's done, then Biden wins the election, as long as there isn't cheating. And to be honest with you, I don't care what happens in Kentucky now. You say, why right off that stuff?
Well, you'll worry about what happens in Kentucky in November. You will.
No, you know why? They're going to go for Trump anyway, and they get the same number of. If Joe Biden doesn't get a vote right in Kentucky,
right,
that doesn't matter, because they're going to go for Trump anyway, unless it's something I don't even foresee. Again, you're back to these states, the 3 states and a handful of others where it really matters, because there's Democratic states and there's a Republican states, and they're givens going in. So let's look at them. What do you got? Ohio, New Mexico, Arizona.
Well, let's just look at 3 states, and these are the ones that we're going to deal with, okay? We'd agree it's Michigan. Pennsylvania is probably something you don't want to lose.
Either one. No, you need those 2 states, right? That's what put Trump in.
And then any third one, whether it's Georgia, or Florida, or whatever. So let's just look at those, Dave.
Or Wisconsin, which just came out pretty heavily in there was a tremendous Republican effort backed by the courts to make it almost impossible to vote in Wisconsin. They came out. Now, here's the other thing, too. Look, I don't want to trash my fellow journalists, but here's the thing. Political reporters need stories. That's what they need, right? And a big story is this idea, but it's in the back of my mind. I don't want to go and vote because it might be dangerous. I think a lot of people are going to surprise you and not write in. I think they're going to feel strongly enough that I think you'll have more at the polls than people believe. And I think to say that they're all going to be Republicans, I don't think you say that. They're all going to be Trump supporters. If they were, they'd have been out at his rally the other night. They would have been out at his rally. Were they? No. Does that mean? So what I'm saying is that kind of balances out. That I think can't prove this, but I do believe this. I think more people would come out and risk their lives to vote against Donald Trump than would come out and risk their lives to vote for them if you had a fear. And a lot of his people are older. So
I don't know. I think they're. In fact, I heard somebody say something to that effect. I guess it was in Phoenix, Arizona today. There was some type of Trump rally of some sort. And they basically said, this is critical. This is going to be absolutely... They know it's going to be critical because they don't have the votes. That they will come out. Republicans, at least the ones that I know, it's from a very, very local and anecdotal level. You and I know the same people because we live near each other. They come out and vote.
But we don't know, Brian. You can't gauge, okay?
Isn't it the independent voter or the one who's...
Everyone who knows me knows that I detest, deplore, hate. You choose the words Donald Trump. And I would do everything legally to see him gone. I speak out. I do it. I do it because that's what I do. We don't know how many other people feel that way, right? All we know is what's reported. Has Joe Biden had a big rally yet? No. Okay. He's playing it the way you should. He's letting Trump get so out there that he realizes, I think it's a smart move. He's going to play the role of, without saying it, I'm saying this guy's crazy. Who do you want in the White House? That's going to be, that's the understated or the unstated message of the Joe Biden campaign. Let's see. We got a Facebook user.
That's Gary, I believe. That's Gary.
Theoretical the power. And I can't read it all. Brian, would you read it to me? I can't.
Absolutely. I'll make it a little bit bigger. It's been suggested that Barr and the theocratic right hold the power and are the danger. They are using Trump.
I think there's some truth to that. I think what happens is that Trump is a chump. Trump is so stuck on himself, he wouldn't know if he were being conned or used. And he is. Okay, that's just a question. Is Mitch McConnell using him? Of course. Does Mitch McConnell respect Donald Trump? Absolutely not. All right, absolutely not. So yeah, that's true. Now, the question becomes, how far do you take that theory? Is there a cabal, a secret meeting? Bill Barr's an opportunist. The one that I can't wait to find out the true story, if we ever do, is Stephen Miller. He's the most fascinating character to me.
Well, he's a self-hating Jew, as far as I'm concerned.
We know what he is. Why, Brian? I'm going to throw this to you. Why has he lasted? You realize he's the longest lasting Trump supporter that has any level of notoriety?
Well, it sounds like you're saying that, for some reason, Stephen Miller has control. It was just John Bolton says it's Kushner. I don't know. Maybe it's something as simple as this, Dave. Stephen Miller speaks very plainly. He doesn't use a lot of cavalier language like, say, George will. And he's very understandable, and he's at the same level of Trump. So maybe it's just, confirmation bias, and says, you know what? I don't want to hear people. Who is the secretary? Rex Tillerson. He's not going to listen to Rex Tillerson. So Stephen Miller is the perfect guy because they're kind of mirror images. That's just my opinion. But at least
I agree. The only difference would be Stephen Miller is an avowed, confirmed, and practicing racist. We know that. We know it from his writings, from his speech. Now, I'm not sure Trump is. When I say this, oh yeah, he is. I'm not sure Trump is anything. You know what I mean? I just don't think he has any conviction. If he thought tomorrow he could win the election by saying or doing anything, he would give up any position because he doesn't have any belief in any of the positions he holds. So it really doesn't matter. I mean, I don't think Stephen Miller, I mean, you weren't saying that. I don't think Stephen Miller's controlling it. Is there a group? Well, of course, there's money. There's money. There's always money, right? Koch brothers are out there somewhere. You know, if I see one more time George Soros is funding, you know, but Soros does fund democratic concerns.
Right, but
okay?
you see, here's where I tie in Russia, because I know some very conservative Russians, not many, and they are just like Republicans here. And there's one name that always comes up, and it's George Soros. George Soros tried to ruin Russia and Putin. And when somebody says that on the right, and they say it on the right here in the United States, I get this kind of feeling that somehow they're in cahoots together.
Unless you were showing some kind of crazy sexual simulation there, I assume that what you were doing was saying
these are multiple fingers here. Okay.
I don't know what kind of sexual practices you engage in.
I'm not in the habit of sharing, Dave, if that's what you're saying.
Okay. Unless you're, of course, there's ties between Russia, or let's put it like this, between Putin and Trump. I don't know what they are. I know they're there.
But philosophically, they're there. It doesn't matter. There's a coincidence of one.
Of course not, because George Soros is funding liberal concerns, and liberals Russians don't. I mean, Putin doesn't take kindly to liberals, right? He kills them.
Correct.
And Trump doesn't take kindly to liberals. He does everything short of killing them. Right?
Right, and they both hate journalists, which is number one.
Well, of course you're going to hate journalists. Look, it's very easy.
That's the biggest threat to Trump is journalism.
The problem with journalism, I'm not, one time I want to do a show on that, but we're not going to do it tonight. But the basic thing is this. Since it goes back to Greek times, to kill the messenger. The journalists who cover Donald Trump say what he, report what he says. Trump's the one that says it didn't. I've seen him. I mean, we know he lies. I mean, I don't have to listen to anybody else. I watch him say something, and the next day he said he didn't say it.
Like, for example, it's just 2 days ago when he said that I wasn't trying to slow down the testing, it was a joke. Then they all say it's a joke, and then the next day I'm serious.
I mean, is it Trump? I mean, I do believe that he has some mental issues. I don't know how damaging they are. But he doesn't have to have them. He has enough narcissism.
Well, he's an asshole too. I mean, just that's enough right there.
But I got to go. It's Father's Day, or just was Father's Day. And, I suppose a lot of us. I know I do it every Father's Day. My father's been dead now. Let's see, how many years he's been dead? More years than than I knew him. I mean, he died in 1972. But of course, I still remember things. And being a Texan, he had all these tales and all these stories, and you remember the ones. And he just said, and I think about this with the Republicans and Trump: you are who you hang with, and that's just so true. And you can use it in mind. Do I like the fact that buildings were being burnt and protests were turning into riots? But I have to own that. I have to own that because I believe in protests, and I realize that some of them become that. And every Trump supporter, every Republican has to own that there's kids in cages. All the bad things that Trump is and does and says, you got to own. And they don't want to. I love this. Well, he doesn't always say the right thing. When did he ever say the right thing? He doesn't always when did he ever do the right thing? So again, I want to take us back to where we were. Nothing has changed in my view, and I don't think it will. America's divided a third, and a third. Or they would like to be. A third for Trump, a third against Trump, and then this unknown third who didn't vote last time.
Okay, I'm gonna stop you right there because I agree with everything you've said, more or less. Right. I like that idea of at least a third and whatever's in the middle, whatever. And I want you to answer this truthfully.
Sure.
If you had to look at those thirds as political units, forgetting about which side you like, which one of those thirds is the most powerful?
Whoever holds the presidency right now, whoever holds the Supreme Court right now, whoever holds the Senate right now, whoever holds the most states that give you the most electoral votes.
So that third thing is really more than a third, because there's something, it's some ingredients are added in.
Let's not around with you. If they have so much power, and we're just playing here. If they have so much power, why aren't they using it? Why do they have to cheat? Why, I don't think they have. I mean, Donald Trump doesn't know how to use anything. He probably, when he was little, right, he probably didn't know how to use his blankie. Okay, he has the bully pulpit, and he doesn't know how to use it. He has no clue. So that yes, there's a lot of power in the presidency, but I sure think that John F. Kennedy, Ronald Reagan, Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, George W. Bush in his finest moments right after 9/11, they knew how to use it.
Okay, I want to. You ask. I think you're almost there by saying, look, if they have so much power, how are they being thwarted to some point? And I want to stop right there. And a lot of people aren't going to like this answer. A lot of people are going to say, "Oh,
I don't like any of your answers." So don't question
a lot of people won't like this, but I think it really comes down to a small group of strong-willed Democrats. I mean, who are really carrying the freight for everybody else. The Adam Schiffs. And everybody takes a shot at Adam Schiff, but he was wonderful. I mean, he has caused anybody that whom Trump hates has to be a hero to me, because it's those type of people.
My enemy, right?
Right. These are the people who are carrying the freight of the Democratic Party. So it's a shame that even people, as you say, the Bernie bros will take shots at him, or even Nancy Pelosi. Everybody thinks she's a corporate interest woman, but in reality, though, she has stuck up for the working person, and she's gone after Trump. And if it wasn't for her coalescing the forces within the Democratic Party, they probably would have had the power. So I think it's a few of those courageous people.
And you've got what I call the quiet, courageous ones. John Lewis. He's probably right now, of everyone alive, he's my biggest hero, in terms of what he's done. And he's a moral compass. You follow him. I would follow. There's not many people, when I say follow, I would just say, tell me what to do morally, and I'll do it. John Lewis is one of those people. So you do have leaders like that. Again, look, the Democrats have always been more disunited in terms of, and that's the advantage.
Good thing, yes.
They're very broad and they're very inclusive. Okay, the Republicans, they represent two groups: white people and rich people. That's it.
And they happen to be the same in most cases.
Well, but not every white.
Right. I understand that there are a few African Americans who support Trump. I don't get it, but
and black and Hispanic people who are pretty damn well off. But the idea of it is, so is it easier to get the Republicans to coalesce? Of course it's easier. All you have to do is make it good for white people and good for rich people.
Or just say no new taxes, and that's enough. I'll vote.
Whatever. No, you don't understand, but that's really pretty easy. Now try to appease the Democrats. The Democrats go from Bernie, AOC, Elizabeth Warren, John Lewis, Nancy Pelosi, Dianne Feinstein, and the list goes on and on and on and on. Right? I like that. I hate to say I'm not a Democrat, but I'm not, because I think when you say you're something, unfortunately these days you follow them blindly. But I will say this, and say it proudly: I am a liberal. I'm probably to the left of most liberals. And therefore, what I look for in a candidate is the most liberal candidate. They don't have to agree with it. And 99 million times out of 99 million times in today's world, at the national level, that's going to be a Democrat.
Right.
Now, I will say this, I hope, and I believe this in my heart, if somehow, through some kind of fluke, the Democrats were to put up a candidate that was as bad in character and as bad in action, as inept, as every bad word you can say is Donald Trump, I wouldn't follow him.
Right, because look, there are more ethics in this party.
Neither would the Democrats.
Well, let me ask you a question here, Dave, or at least have you make a comment on this. We see what's happening with Governor DeSantis in Florida. Their COVID rates are going way up. Most of your southern states, which have southern governors are having problems with COVID. The infection rates are way up. And basically, we don't even need to go to a second wave. It's just a tidal wave.
Yeah, we may never
Right. We may never get out of it. But you don't see this outcry in Florida about, the fact that this is coming back. They're endorsing this shit. They just keep saying, so this is a group of people who are completely unlike Democrats. They just, it's all hook, line, and sinker.
Why, Brian? Who did I say? Who did I say they represented?
The rich and the whites, yes.
Okay, so they're always going to be on the side of business, right? And so, really, what they've done, Brian, and this is a stance. I think it's horrendous. They have said, we're going to open this, and people are going to die. Oh well, because we've got to get the businesses open.
Right. Now, this is where it gets very complex. And you've explained this to me yourself many times, that even if we do get back, and we are getting back, whether we like it or not, they're forcing even liberal states to kind of go through phase 2, whatever you want to call it. But as you said, and you said it correctly, no matter what happens, we've changed forever. Some jobs just will never come back.
Well,
and the economy, even if it's 20%, that's a lot in terms of GDP. They can't survive this thing. I mean, in terms of, again, it's the economy, stupid, that kind of thing. They can't use the economy because there is none.
Well, they're not trying to use it. What they're trying to do is they're trying to bring it back. All right. They're trying to benefit. Maybe, look, who made money in this pandemic, right? The rich. That's who made money. Now, nothing against Jeff, my neighbor here, Jeff Bezos. He came from number 2 to number 1, after giving up a good percentage of his wealth to his wife in the divorce. Now, the problem is, too, with Republicans, and I've argued with them of this, they live in a past. They live in a past that must have included unicorns and satyrs. It wasn't a realistic past. We're not going back to that past. I was reading today, and I believe it to be true, a very well thought out article. And let's just play with this for a minute because you brought up the economy. Working from home is going to be the norm, not the exception. There's a multitude of reasons for that. I was talking to, we actually had dinner tonight with we call her our daughter, but the guy she's seeing now, he's actually an American, but of Pakistani origin, and he's sharp. He's got a couple businesses in the tech field, and he said, "There's no reason for anybody in my field to come in the office." But he said, "I do miss the office camaraderie." Right? He said, "I do miss the office camaraderie," but he said it's really counterproductive work. So, I mean, you're not going to do that. So, when that happens, right? Let me just use here an example. If I look out my window and turn now, I can see National Airport. I can see PBS. They're our neighbors. But I can also see Boeing. There's a 12-story building. Now, the airlines are hurting, right? Correct?
Absolutely.
I mean, they really are.
All you have to do is look up in the sky, and you will not see what you usually see.
That means Boeing is hurting.
Yes. Okay. Although Boeing did receive the mother load of help.
I'm still talking about that because it's going to go to the rich. I'm just saying. So they're not going to take their corporate benefits away, but they got a 12-story building. If they can run that, why would you pay taxes on that building, right? Why would you risk having 12 stories worth of people coming in? Great article in, I was pretty sure it was a Post I read. You know what the most dangerous thing in America is right now for the virus? Any idea? And I wouldn't expect you to get it. I'm not saying
what is the most, in what way do you mean what a dangerous thing?
Where is the most dangerous place to put yourself right now in America in terms of the virus?
Well, obviously it has to do with physical proximity. So whatever you're discussing is schools, planes, cafeterias, house
Sure, all of that.
inside where there's air conditioning.
But you want to know what the most dangerous place to put yourself right now is? An elevator.
Right, there's hardly any airflow.
You can't socially distance.
You're stuck.
So offices were designed, flow of people. So I'm getting back to the office. Why are these businesses? Well, okay, so they don't come back, right? They work from home. Well, this place that I live in is designed to support 60,000 workers. 59,000 or 59,000 which don't come in anymore, less than 1,000. That's, it's not, there's not enough people to do that.
Well, even look at Tulsa. I mean, don't you think that, it really had probably a lot less to do with TikTok, that some Republicans are actually scared shitless and said, what?
Come on,
I don't think I want to get it.
I throw this out. I'd like to hear some others' opinions because my wife Judy and I talk about this, and I'm not pushing her because of what. I mean, I'm not brave. Don't get me wrong, but because I'm a writer and I'm back, I kind of like it. For anybody who has ever been a reporter, I'm back actually being a reporter again now, not on this show with commentary, but I mean actually go out and get stories and writing about them in our pandemic journal, which is kind of. I mean, it's fun. It's like a return to what I like. But because of that, I make sure I keep myself safe. But, I've been in places that nobody else has been. I mean, in terms of walking into restaurants. But Jude's not my wife, who's a very brave. She said, I'm just not ready to go into a inside dining yet, right? So, yeah, I mean, there's, you got to be aware of this damn thing.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, it's... Even if, let's forget about the Republicans. Let's even forget about the Democrats or the friends that we have that won't wear the masks. And we both have discussed this privately.
Oh, right.
But let's look at the Dave and Judy Prices and the Brian and Ronnie Weinsteins out there. There may not be 40% of us, but what happens if there's only 5 or 10%? That's a hell of a hit to the GDP. So no matter what happens, Trump can try to get back and do.
No, that's a, yeah. No.
There's a danger. Now, this is something I suppose you would probably be able to discuss with your son, who would understand this much more deeply than you or I would. What privately would be spoken at the different regional feds in this situation, because don't forget, they're constantly looking at the numbers and they're saying, okay, look, this thing can't keep going on. We can't keep juicing the economy, but we don't want to say it publicly. Do you get any kind of feel from your son about that, or does he lay off?
No, we no, he doesn't lay off. We don't talk as much because, as and I know, is he's in Australia now.
And Keith is here, by the way, listening. Keith Boyd from Australia.
Hey. Yeah, I hope to get.
I don't think he sent your $1,000.
I don't. No. So I mean, we talk about that. It's more a comparison, and let me say this: the United States is not stacking up well to Australia or any other country. We're running what? What are we running with? Russia, Brazil, and us. As the laggards in the world. There you are. Whoever put that up there. No office workers, no soft sports.
Keith Boyd. That's Keith Boyd from Australia.
Yeah, Keith, you're absolutely right. And like I said, I live in a town, 3 metro stops from D.C. that supports really the airport, government, and soon to be taken over by Bezos and Amazon. But even there, look, Bezos has unlimited money. He can do whatever he wants. But you really think he's taken over. It's where they're building the new complex, the large one. It's a full city block, and he's going to put one building there, or 2 buildings, but one thing. Do you really think they're going to put that into that scale? I mean, they're just digging a hole now.
This is Ronnie's comment. She said, and they have been just in overload. Yeah. Don't forget, this is Vanity with hair. If the business I work for is any indication, people are out spending moolah. Yeah, I mean, in certain cases, they really are.
Yeah, well, look.
The vanity thing, I think that whole thing about vanity is a big...
Let's go with vanity, people. I let my hair grow. Used to have it really long. And I liked it. I wear a baseball cap a lot. It was out here and it was down. It looked pretty cool. And my wife said, go get a haircut. She was right. So for the first time since March 7th, I went to the barber today. It's a barber that I've been going to for 9 years, minus the 14 months we were in Atlanta. It's a two-person shop in our underground. They are Vietnamese, husband, wife. The original, when I first got there, the original proprietor was there. He worked until he was 84 and said I had enough. So about 3 years ago, turned it over to this couple. I was going to be her only customer today that she knew. One customer a day is not going to keep that barbershop open.
Right.
That one goes. Okay. And then it's a domino effect, right? We have in our basement, again, I keep saying, why you say that? Because this is what I do. I mean, this is just a microcosm. I live here, but it's a microcosm of America. One of the differences, we have a lot more foreign owners here. We have a Taiwanese woman who's fantastic. She has this novelty shop. I've often wondered, Brian, I don't know if you do that when being in South Jersey, I go to, say, Atlantic City, see these big casinos, and then you see these little novelty shops. How the hell do they stay open? Well, I wonder,
like little kiosks. I mean, you sometimes you wonder how they can survive.
But the rent's pretty stiff down here, and it's getting even more stiff for people because the corporate greedy people think they'll get more with Amazon coming, etc. She ran 3 days without a customer.
Wow.
Okay. I don't know how you do that. We're talking about vanity. We have a major spa here.
And those are wealthy people when we talk about vanity there, Dave. I think we can agree on that. They have the money.
I'm going to get to that now. So we have a vanity spa here, very similar to the one where your wife works. I was talking to the owner, I guess 2 days ago, and they said, yeah, we're doing real good right now, but will it continue? And see, and we're speculating. I'm going to risk my good record. There's going to be a need for a shutdown again.
That's breaking
now,
news.
The question is there governmental and public will to do it? Now, I'm going to say the worst thing about this shutdown is it didn't accomplish the more primary goal. Yes, it did reduce temporarily. And in New York, it was great. It was, but here's the thing. Because the President of the United States is totally incompetent to do anything.
And he has governors behind him. He can't do it without those governors.
What I'm saying is this, Brian. There were two things that needed to be done. One was accomplished and one was done not at all. The first thing was to slow the spread of the virus, number one. But number two, it was to look at how do we prepare when it returns. Okay, I was talking today to a owner of an Irish pub who actually opened in November of 2019, closed, back open. You know what his biggest problem was today? And I'm asking that rhetorically. He can't find gloves to put on his servers because they don't exist. We should have been looking at that, right? We weren't. We were talking about some things that his wife is in healthcare. We should have been looking at what is manufactured in China that we can't get now. Look, we should have been doing that. Where are we going to get these respirators from and ventilators from if we need them? And we did nothing. We did absolutely. We stopped it, and it's going to come back. So, if indeed we do close again, more businesses will be out, and then now we're back to Florida.
Right. And by the way, Emily just wanted to mention, Emily.
I know Emily very well.
Yes, Emily Wildert. She says, I agree. It's coming in September. Homeschooling could be a growing business.
And Emily, you're absolutely right. And here's the thing, Brian, too. I'm not going to be one to say there's a light, behind every darkness. But certain things will have to change. There will be businesses that we can't even quite conceive of now that will become huge. Now, let's take that schooling thing. You and I are well trained in that. I spent 34 years at about every level you could have, 8th grade to graduate school, consultant, a teacher, et cetera, whatever. I don't have an answer for schools. I don't have an answer for schools. I don't know if there is one that actually works. It'll have to be community by community, almost. I don't even know if it could be state by state, because certainly Camden is different than Vineland is different than Bridgeton.
And what happens, Dave? again, let's do a thought experiment.
Sure.
Now, I'm 60. I know a handful of teachers who are older than I am. Well, 4 or 5 years, and they just hang on. You know, certain teachers will hang on till they're 65 or 70. My father knew somebody at West Philadelphia High School who lasted into her 90s. Okay, that happens.
Still, certainly, there are teachers in America now in public schools who are over 65. I mean, I don't.
Right, but 60 to 70, they're there, and that's kind of weird to say. They're there, but the thing is, what will happen? Here's the thought experiment. Let's suppose we're in the second or third week of October, and all of a sudden, on average, every other school loses a teacher because of COVID.
Right. Let's look at this.
What principal, what superintendent is going to say, "You're staying open. I don't care if we lose the teacher." Now what do? Now you've got the kids who love that teacher saying, "You son of a bitches, we're pointing the finger at you." That kind of thing.
Okay. Well, here's what's going to happen from a number of levels. Okay. Let me take it from the highest level for higher education. You know, we talked earlier about Michael. Here's one of his concerns right now. He's a professor when he's not traveling the world and working other places. His home base is the University of Alabama in Tuscaloosa. And, they're trying to decide what to do. And the battle's really going to play out there. The mayor today of Tuscaloosa said, and I believe it to be true, that if the University of Alabama does not play football, the community of Tuscaloosa loses $2 billion.
Right. And there are a lot of, when I say that, there are plenty of Alabamas out there. There's Ohio State, there's Michigan, there's Penn State.
I mean, this is a community, okay? That's a big chunk of change.
Right.
Okay. So there's and the SEC and the South take football as a religion. There's going to be a big push. And Brian, you and I've talked about this in sports. Almost every school, almost every college in America that has their kids back right now have an increase in the cases.
By the way, Rosanna Morano says she has finally caught you live. She's live right now with us.
Very good, Roseanne. Listen, Roseanne, would you come on and just show your artwork? If anybody...
Absolutely.
It's
phenomenal. It's so colorful.
It's
it's alive. It just comes out at you.
No, it really does. Even things I tell her, I don't like this type of thing. Like I don't like. I'm not a nature person, and she does wonderful flowers. So anyway, I think Roseanne, we'll just do a show with you and your artwork.
And by the way, I want to add before Ronnie and Roseanne just agree on just about everything. So sometimes when I can't see a comment on Facebook, I can't tell whether it's Roseanne or Ronnie.
It's the R thing, right?
Yeah. Well, they are alike in a lot of ways.
Let me just finish this college thought, and then we'll get back to high school, which is more important. Look, colleges do have the advantage. They were more prepared to go online. They will. But here's the question. I'll use my alma mater. When I say I love dearly, I'm not like that. But, Villanova helped shape me, especially, which is kind of weird because I'm not a Catholic, but it did.
Well, at least you didn't go to Liberty.
Well, no, I wasn't going to do that. No. But what I'm saying, Villanova is a marvelous school. It really is.
Yes.
But is it worth $70,000? Now, would you pay $70,000 to watch your kid sit in his bedroom and do online in college? No. And so what's happening, I don't know a lot of people, but I know people whose kids are transferring. They're going to go to a community college, right? The other thing is being close to home. Can you imagine? Let's just do a hypothetical. You're in. Well, I don't have to do a hypothetical. We have a family. Judy's cousin, her daughter lives in downtown London. Jennifer's not going to get to see her granddaughter for a while, right? Should she? Well, if Jennifer were going to school there, I think she might look into transfer and getting close because her mom, our age. So it's just, colleges are going to be disruptive. And one of the things that's happening, and young people are going to do this. I mean, you can't get angry at them. Apparently, one of the new things is COVID parties. Are you aware of that, Brian? Do you know what that is?
I'm not sure I want to know what that is, but you'll have to tell me.
What it if you're a group of young people, say college, right? You find someone who has COVID and you invite them to your party. And the idea of it is we're going to get it eventually, right? Let's get it now while school's not in session, and we'll get immunity. The thinking is
Right.
we won't get it again. So why not get it now?
And that's
right?
not necessarily the case, though, because even Fauci said today the antibodies
but we're saying
go
it,
away.
Right? So that's another thing that's going on. So if you're a professor, you're hearing that, and Michael, who's what? How old is Michael now? I even forget. He's 47, I guess. God, he's gonna be 50 soon. But anyway, he has 2 young kids at home. Does he want to go in, get it, and bring it home to them? So that's beyond anybody's understanding. Now let's move into what concerns me, is where I spent most of my time in high school. How the hell do you open a high school?
Yeah, I'd like to know that, because I was just at the high school today.
Okay, let's look at the problems going in. You've got a disease that young people can get even if it doesn't kill them, and give it to older people. And you have older people in high school.
Right.
You're not going to be allowed to have anybody in who isn't part of that high school. No parents, no vendors, no speakers, no field. They're not going to be able to go out, and nobody's going to be able to come in. Now, let's assume that the CDC recommends, and that doesn't mean you have to follow them, but they're saying most places you should have a temperature check. What's Bridgeton High School's enrollment roughly now, Brian?
A little bit over 1,400.
Okay, 1,400 kids coming through one door, correct? They still do that, right?
There are 2 doors now. They have a freshman center, but it's crowded.
Okay. So
and there's a search for weapons and things like that.
But which you still got to do that. Okay, but now you're going to put
you're
on,
touching this and that.
I don't really see how you're going to, but you've got to take temperatures. Now, I found, again, Amazon's coming, and sneaking around and trying to, I saw their setup. It's very interesting.
Well, how is a nurse going to handle it? I mean,
well, here's the thing.
They go to the nurse all the time.
This is a number that was thrown out. They said that if you have over 1,000 kids in your high school, right, or any school, you should have 5 nurses. How many does Bridgeton High School have?
At any one time, they have like 3, but there's one main one that's there, and then they have some.
No, but they don't have that.
No,
right?
they have one, basically.
Right. So you got to do that. Now, let's look at the tax structure. What's going to happen? And see, we're not off Donald Trump, because Donald Trump's supposed to be helping solve this, and he's not. The fiscal year ends when, Brian? You should know this. What date?
For the schools, June 30th.
Right. And that's when, that's something. So they have to have their budgets getting ready and all this stuff. There's budget figures. They're predicated on what might come in taxes. Do you know what's going to come in taxes? 50% less, right? People aren't paying their rent.
Right.
They can't pay their rent. It's not like they're trying to die. They're not going to have the money. Socially distancing. How the hell do you socially distance in school with kids? Well, as I said, I'll use the German experiment. Former student of mine, friend over there, who's teaching. He had 30 students. They put 10 in 3 rooms, and he went back and forth. Can you do that in high schools? Well, where are the other kids? So you bring in the 9th graders, you bring in the 12th graders, fine. But now I have and they're doing one shift, and so say 9 and 12 is doing one shift. We'll just make this, and 10, 11 doing another. But I have one of my students in 9th grade and one in 11th grade. And what do we get? I got child care problems, 180 days a year. Are you going to you can't send a high school kid to daycare. And usually what would happen is, I know in our case, with 7th and 8th graders, by the time Michael was there, you had after school programs. You really think they're going to have after school programs? They don't have the running to run the day school programs. They won't have the training to do that.
And athletics. What about athletics, Dave? The switching of the seasons in sports?
I think athletics are going to be, we'll deal with that maybe next show, just because we go on forever. But, I'm not an expert in that. I don't know how, well, I don't know.
You know what's happening now with sports? Not much, correct?
Right, no. And look, you can play a professional game, right, without spectators. You can. It's not the same, but you know, and you put it on TV, and if you're an Eagles fan or whatever, you watch it. Are you going to play high school games without spectators? You really think mom or dad aren't going to show up, or grandpa? And how are you going to do that? Last I knew, and it's been what, 10 years since I've been in a high school. Well, I've been in high school once in 10 years. But last I knew, there's some contact out there. Is that correct, Brian?
That's
football.
correct.
And, you know, Judy was saying the other day,
Especially basketball.
I haven't. Oh, you're sweating. You're on there.
Right.
You know. The other one is, think about it. How do you socially distance in a dugout, a baseball dugout? You don't, right? What do? You know, in the majors, they can go to the locker room and we call you up. I don't know.
Well, I guess if you're Republican, it doesnesn't matter. You know,
you know, interesting enough, they die the same as everyone.
you have Republican sports. You know, have Republican guard.
We're actually saying that. I would assume, I'm going to go out on a limb here. Somebody can prove me wrong. I would assume more owners of sports are Republicans than Democrats. That would be my guess.
Well, if you're using logic, and which is the right thing to do. They're wealthy. They believe in capitalism, and they're probably conservatively.
And more white
leaning.
men own them than people of color.
Yeah, they've had some legacy wealth helping them out. Sure.
And now you're beginning to see an interesting shift in power, though.
Right.
Not just the tragedy of George Floyd and what we're seeing, but we're seeing athletes. There's a kid in Mississippi State who's a phenomenal running back. And you know what he said? He said, until you get this Confederacy shit out of here, I ain't playing for you.
Right.
Now, if he does that, you don't think other, you know, so the balance, you know, is kind of shifting to the people. Now, back to school, the last thing, all right? So you don't have enough money to run the school the way it was run.
Because the state budget has probably been cut by, what, 20 or 30%?
Well, it was.
And how do you cut it, too? What will they take away? Just a flat, we'll take administrators out, teachers, sports?
No, because, you know, I mean, as a teacher, I used to argue this. But there are a need for certain administrators, okay? I mean, you cannot have a school district without a superintendent. That's like Occupy, okay? The buck has to stop there, right? Now, does the superintendent need 5 or 6 assistants? Probably not, right? 1 assistant, maybe 2, depending on the school size or whatever. In Washington, D.C., do you realize they fill a 10-story building with people that don't even involved in schools? But that's a whole different story. So they're not going to have money. Now, all right, now you've got the problem of older teachers. I've read, and I've seen this, and I'm sure you have too, and people out there have seen it, that they're pretty much going to say to the teachers and to the students, look, if you have a condition, you don't have to come. Really? I don't have to come? Okay. So now let's say, Brian, you do have a condition. It's legitimate. And you're not going. And you're going to teach from home. And I have to go in and teach.
Right.
And deal with your kids, too, who should be with you, but they're not because they're with, you know. So there's all that. Then, on top of all that, you're going to ask people to do things they've never done before. I like human love. So if you really thought about 7 generations, you would advocate rebellion in the streets by any means necessary. Here's the problem with that human love. That's it. The problem with rebellion is if you're going to go to that, you have to understand you don't control the outcome. I.e., refer to the French Revolution. It started out with the greatest. Refer to Fidel Castro's communist revolution.
Russian Revolution.
I'm not going to argue real strongly, but I am going to argue that because I understand that people don't want either side or whatever. America is set up to have a revolution every November, and I think that's where it starts. I mean, I think we can change America, but you're not going to change it necessarily at the presidential level. You're going to change it from other. We are living in weirdness. My God, yes.
By the way, we have Kevin Meeks joining us. Great to see Kevin.
Hey, Kevin. Shout out to Kevin. But
Kev,
yeah, send a question in because you're involved with education.
Right.
Certainly, the Meeks family is involved. It really, to me, having spent 34 years in education, that's the most disconcerting of all the problems, because all these cliches are kind of true, but those kids are the future. Right? I mean, now, they lost out on a year. Ooh, human love, solidarity. I spent a lot of time not a lot of time. I spent some time with Occupy, and I think they're going to be they're important to the cause. They're the ones, really, I give them all the credit for bringing 1% into the vernacular. They had great ideas. I think they were a little too idealistic and a little too scattered. Unfortunately, and I might be antiquated and old. You got to have kind of a focus, and you've got to have a person or two, not in power, but be able to speak. And I think that was it. Now I give them a lot of props for being out there. As I say, I think when historians begin to look at this change, it begins with Occupy. Brian, would you agree with that? That's my theory.
Well, we've discussed that, and I think you do need a leader to have a successful change or revolution, and Occupy didn't have it. Although I like the idea of people not having a leader and coming together. But you were right. It just didn't really get anywhere. And whatever you say, whether you say the police did it or not, it's like Russia. I mean, you're not going to get Extinction Rebellion to be effective in Russia. It's not going to happen. You can't have more than one person protesting without a license to do it in Russia. And you can't even speak. You just have to stand there with your poster.
I'll give you another example of not being able to control what you do once you unleash the, what would you say? You unleash the hounds. Is a bad analogy to talk about this. But anyway, so we have this movement now, spearheaded. I think it's very important to say America is a racist society. That pisses me, yes. What happens is this. You lose some control. Now, should the Confederate statutes come down? Absolutely. Absolutely. The idea of them not taking them down, that is a reminder we don't need.
And that's going to be a big issue this week, believe me. What? That will be a big. We'll be talking about that next week for sure.
Now you begin to look at where's the line drawn there. See, I think there's always a line. Now we're going to take down, which is okay still, Teddy Roosevelt, because he's a symbol of American colonialism. That was the time, right? Now, but here's the thing. Now there's a movement. It's a splinter group, but it's still there. That all pictures, stained glass or whatever, of Jesus Christ as a white person needs to come down. Now, that doesn't help you win people that you need. My question would be, if you take down the Confederate symbols, black people should despise and hate them, right? And that's just a kind thing to do. It's just a kind thing to do, and we should have done it.
Makes a lot of sense.
It just, there's no reason for that.
I mean, I aside from the fact that these Southerners have this romantic view of the past, all of them have got to go.
And I think I have some props to say on that, because I'm from the South and had relatives who fought for the Confederacy. There are a whole ton of Prices that fought for the Confederacy. And if I can say that.
And it's so ironic because you're so much different than your forefathers.
I understand that, but times are different too.
Right.
But I think, you have to look at lines. So my question would be this. If your movement was take down every Confederate statue in America, I think that's fine. I think it doesn't mean to be fine. I think it's appropriate. I think it's something that should be done in law. Now, as people need to know your background. I don't believe in organized religion. I never have. I never will. I think the problem is that how you relate to whatever your concept of a higher power is up to you. And I think, humans corrupt everything. So they corrupted the churches. Having said that, I'm not saying this. Does making Jesus black, white, green, blue, or orange really do anything for racism? I'm going to say no. I'm going to listen to people who feel it does, but I don't. And so I think, if I were leading the Black Lives Movement, I would say that's for another day.
I think they're basically, I don't know how far they want to take that Dave, but I think it's the idea that they're saying, you hypocrites, if you look at the history, the religious history of the world, what probably this person looked like did not look like Brad Pitt with long hair and, a good-looking physique.
It was designed by Italian painters in the Renaissance. Come on.
Right. I mean, it's...
So so again, I think when somebody said before revolution...
So I don't see too many Buddhas in people's houses.
Well, because we're on a health kick, right? We
right.
Yeah. But seriously, though...
I shouldn't laugh, but that's just the way I treat religion.
No, what you have to do, this is a battle, okay? This is a battle, all right? And I try to simplify the battle and win the victories I can. And right now, I think the one thing that we should all be concentrated on, if we're not Trump supporters, is getting Trump out of the White House.
Absolutely.
That's a panacea.
That's alpha and omega.
No, it doesn't. But it buys you 4 years, right? Hopefully, of somebody better, and I don't say anybody could be worse, right? To begin to say, all right, now let's target. And again, maybe I'm naive, maybe I'm stupid. I could be all those things. I've been called worse. But I'm encouraged about Joe Biden from this angle. I'm encouraged because he will have some hellacious advisors behind him. Obama, people that have been there and know that. Biden is a listener. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Blacks are targeted. I mean, obviously. But again, I'm going to turn that. Okay? It is true. No dispute. It's probably, unfortunately, it should have ended. Well, if the first slave were never brought here 401 years ago, we wouldn't be having this discussion. So blacks have been persecuted for 401 years in this country. Native Americans even longer than that. Now, again, we're talking about Donald Trump. The question becomes to any black person tonight, and I'll respect their answer, are you better off tomorrow with Donald Trump in the White House or Joe Biden? That's really what you're talking about.
And by the way, that came up today. Somebody said to me, and I mentioned his name to you, Dave, today. He said, oh, well, that guy will be just as bad. And I said, no, he won't. But some people won't listen to that, Dave.
That's fine, Brian.
Right.
You're always, you're admirable in this. It's like you really think you're going to, sometimes I think you really think you're going to convince these people, and you're not. We can't even convince our own
people,
right? It will take an army to remove Trump. Don't think he will actually go willingly if he makes another 4 years. I bet he will try for a third term. And I'm not going to disagree with that. I don't even think he'll necessarily go willingly now, But you have to look at so far, the one area that stood up to him more than any other is the military. And those that are saying that, the generals are saying, we follow the Constitution, not Donald Trump. Right? So, he's not going to go willingly.
But, Dave, I'm going to stop you there because I have to.
Yeah.
And
Sure.
you and I have discussed this privately. And you've more or less agreed with me that if you look at people who are recruited by the armed forces, especially the Army, and you need an Army, many of them are African American and Latino. They're minorities. And I think the armed forces aren't going to publish, at least not put it out there in the media, if they're meeting their recruitment, requirements, which I'm sure they're not. Because the minute you keep having scenes like you've had with somebody with their knee on somebody's neck, young kids are going to say, what the hell do I want to fight for this country for? So I think the military, just like we talk about with the economy, how the Fed behind the scenes is worried about what actually is going to happen, this kind of conversation that you and I are having right now, if the military were watching, or if there is somebody from the military, this would scare the shit out of them. And I know it. Because all you'd have to do is say to somebody in some environment where it's all over the media, millions and millions of people, and you say, how do you expect African Americans to join the military under these situations right now? And how well would your standing army do against the Russians and the Chinese with an army made up of white Republicans? And plenty of them are going to have bone spurs. So, I mean, you may think I'm joking, but
No,
that's their fear, in my opinion. And that's, I think, why, was it Milley? General Milley He had to come back quickly. I think that has a lot to do with it.
Oh, well, of course.
It's not just that Trump's fucked up.
No, I think it's a combination of factors, none of which favor Trump, right? Do that again.
This is Roseanne. I had to switch scenes. I will put it back.
Yeah, put it up.
Can you read that there, Dave? We're good?
Pretty much so. As an artist, it bothers me to see artwork destroyed. Yeah, of course. But again, this is kind of where I go with this. Once we're now in a rebellion revolt. Would you agree, Brian?
Yes, absolutely.
And I describe it, somewhat facetiously, somewhat the way I feel. It's an uncivil civil war. That's really what it is. So civility's already got thrown out the window. That's the casualty. Now you're trying to decide what's salvageable, and who's going to that's going to be the person who doesn't light it on fire, right? I mean, seriously, with artwork or whatever. Mm-hmm. As bad as that sounds, right? Statues were, now, see, I'm a bad one to do that because I don't think statues teach history. I think reading primary sources, reading good books, and I don't mean the history books. I was talking to my daughter-in-law the other night in Australia, and she comes from a conservative family, Republican family, and she was livid. She was just saying, we have to scrap everything we taught in history, and we have to teach it right. And I said, Shannon, what do you mean, honey? She said, I didn't know, and she just started a list. I didn't know about Juneteenth. I didn't know about Tulsa. I didn't know. And I said, well, I can top that. I was raised in some formative years in Seabrook Village, where the largest group of people were Japanese Americans who had been victims of the internment, and I didn't learn about that till I got to college, right? So yeah, but look, it's just a freaking fallacious argument. If you take down a statue, nobody's going to remember the Civil War. Fuck. How are you not?
And didn't this play? I mean, I saw this during the coup in '91 in Russia with all the Lenin statues coming. I was right there. And the exact same thing happened. And they brought them down. Now, there are a few that are still left. But, right. For example, you cannot, even in countries near Russia, Russia does not like taking down any type of statues commemorating Soviet military men who fought in those countries. But as far as Lenin, they all went down. And it's the same thing here.
Well, the other thing is, Brian, I think, too, you have to look at the statues that are coming down. And that's what I'm talking about. You have to figure out.
Frank Rizzo came down. They put him away.
Frank Rizzo was a friggin' racist, a stone-cold Trumpian, just smarter and more vicious.
Right, and he held out with the African Americans for a while because Joe Frazier liked him, because Joe Frazier was a Republican, like Wilt Chamberlain. They both voted for Nixon.
But let's look at who do the statues commemorate. And this is hard for me because I come with my sons. They commemorate traitors to the United States of America. What else were they, right? Every Confederate
was a traitor. And I agree. That's why I say Jeff Van Drew's a traitor.
Nothing to do that. So the first question is, do we put up monuments and memorials to traitors? That's the first question. But it goes beyond that. Do you really think Black Americans need to be reminded of slavery? I think they kind of realize that it happened. You think they're going to forget it someday just because Robert E. Lee isn't riding his horse in Richmond? I don't think so. Next, we have a tendency. Let me rephrase. How many peace memorials have we visited? I know there's not many peaceful people. Maybe a Gandhi thing here, a Martin Luther King memorial in D.C. And the reason, we tend to think of these, even if you don't think about it, well, they must have been pretty good people, right? Because they got this monument. Well, that's like saying Trump must be a pretty good person. He had a TV show. Monuments are TV shows, stars frozen in time. Take the damn things down. But again, I understand that once you give that permission, now where does it end? I think you could just say, let's take down every traitor, and then we're stopping.
But now you know what Trump's doing. He's he may go as far as saying, if you take these things down, you're going to be punished. He's calling them anarchists that are taking.
He's already saying it'll be, he's going to have extraordinary punishment for people who do it. Well, first of all, you got to catch him, right?
And how dare? What is he going to get the military again to come? Are you going to get General Milley to come back and arrest these people for taking down Robert E. Lee? Again, what will the military say? What will the military look like if they take young African Americans away for taking down Robert E. Lee? In fact, there'll be plenty of young white Americans who will do it also.
Well, I think what happens, Brian, and again, the problem with living in a period of time is you're immersed in it. You really need the perspective of some time gets by, right? To look at this. So we're immersed in it. But I think that's a very astute thing you just said. We don't know how this is going to play out, number one, correct?
Yeah, he can say he's going to do it, but when you actually do it, you've got to pay the price.
But there are some people who, believe it or not, do act with a sense of the future. Environmentalists.
Right.
They're concerned about the now, but they're more concerned about
the future.
So,
right.
Future, which is good. I'm glad somebody is. So I just think, again, we're just going to finish on this thing because, again, Trump's going to take the opposite thing. But I would say to everyone who's out there, even though I said you lose control, I tell the protesters, keep yourself safe. We need your vote. We really do need your vote at that point. Now, that they can say it's more important I'm out on the street. I agree. Don't have any problem with that. But just, try not to give the other side too much ammunition. And I think, Brian, you said it so well. Who the fuck should be arrested for destroying Robert E. Lee?
Right. I mean, you're essentially putting the knee on somebody's neck. I mean, the man is a traitor. Okay, he was a Benedict Arnold, but yet somehow people are going to put him literally on a pedestal, and you're going to tell that person that they're somehow an anarchist.
Now, a lot of people, I try to school, not because I have a lot of knowledge. I have very little knowledge on a few things, and education is one of them. We talk about the textbooks, and I've actually researched this enough to feel comfortable in it. There are 3 states that control the textbooks.
I know Texas is one of them.
Texas is one, 2 more. Any idea?
I'm going to guess that at least 2 of those are southern states. I know Southwestern.
South, 1 east, 1 west.
Well, all I know is for sure Texas. I thought Texas controlled 70% of the textbooks.
No, that's a misnomer. It's Texas, New York, and California. Why? Because it has the most number of students going to schools, right? But here's the interesting thing. They don't want to write 3 different textbooks, Brian.
But they do. They do. No, the history books are different for each state.
But I'm talking about the big companies. They want to try to just write. If you just write 1, you don't have to pay 3 authors, right?
Correct.
So for a long time, what happens is they have veto power. So even though California and New York would probably accept more things, let's run the Texas line and let's leave it out or let's change it.
Well, I know for a fact that with Texas, especially with history, certain pages will look a little bit different, and that's a shame that it would be that way. You would think you'd have, some authority, and you stay with one thing.
Having grandchildren going to school in 3 different southern states now: Tennessee, Georgia, and Alabama.
Yeah, but science is the number one because they're going to start talking about evolution as a theory that is more or less an hypothesis in Texas. But and then again, what is a theory to one state? It could be something different because kids in Texas think a theory is, or not. Let's say Texas, say Mississippi. Will think white Mississippi. They'll say a theory is just you're just kind of having some idea, but they don't know the difference.
That's one of the problems with theories. Gravity is a theory.
Right.
Anybody disproves it, jump off the goddamn roof tonight.
Right.
See what happens. Okay. That's a same thing here. But that's back to this group, and now we keep coming back to Trump, right? Which is good. We're never off of Trump. The people who do not believe in evolution vote for Donald Trump.
Correct.
Okay. Evangelicals do not believe in evolution. They vote for Donald Trump.
They're going to lose. See, here's what the problem with them. They're going to lose their ability to dominate their women. They're going to lose their afterlife, too, to evolution. Science is going to... That's why it's very difficult for religious people to talk with me as an atheist. I mean, it just blows them away because the conversation kind of ends with, you know what, maybe I'm not going to get out of this thing alive. And Weinstein's crazy.
Well, the only thing is, Brian, and I just kind of leave it here, I believe simply that I'm living in reality, So who tonight said, it's like we're living in Twilight Zone or whatever, absolutely. But this is basically reality. People might see it differently. And you know what reality consists of? You are born, you live, and you die. Would you agree?
Only two things you can be guaranteed, birth and death.
Right. And life
is in between, yes.
Yeah, is in between. I mean, yes. I mean, there is a
okay, we're in agreement. And this is reality as we can know it. I mean, we know that at different levels, the reality's going on. But as far as what we see and what we touch, this is reality.
And maybe I am, the great one is in literature, you're just a character in a book. You're not really real. Well, okay, whatever. But I mean, I just think that's, that's fun to speculate on. So, but here's the problem now. Even though we're all living in one reality, we have things that make us see it differently. And so we're back to religion is one of the things that makes it see us differently. Political divisions, how you feel, whether you're a man or a woman, how you feel about the opposite sex. Where did the artifacts in the museum come from? Many were stolen, obviously. And I think, again, too, though, you have to be careful with what you put in there. Certainly, I don't think America stole as many. Probably England, I visited, their museums a number of times in London. And, they stole from wherever they were in the colonies, right? Or wherever they had colonies. But the idea of it is what is history? Is history statues? Is history, the thoughts passed down? And that comes from a reality of the people there. And, they say history is written by the winners. And that's true. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is here that basically if you take every problem in America today, who's the least likely person to solve it or the most likely person to make it worse? Donald Trump.
Yeah, he poisons everything.
If you're really living in reality, and I'm not asking you to do it. It's a hypothetical, kind of a rhetorical question. I would challenge anybody to say, this is a problem in America today, and this is what Donald Trump has done to make it better. I'm at a loss. Now, is the next president going to be perfect? No. But they're going to be better than Donald Trump. Now, and again, I want to caution, as I said earlier, America is not going to become great again because Donald Trump is driven from office. But we're going to we're going to be better again on that very day. And we're going to be back on a path that will allow us to walk, stumble, crawl, sometimes have to roll, sometimes run toward greatness. The thing about America that is so fascinating to me is men who were racist. No, they were racist, but that doesn't even include. I mean, slavery was beyond racism. They were a group of people who believed another group of people weren't humans, were subhumans, who treated their women like shit, who didn't really like poor people, who thought the uneducated were unwashed, et cetera, that they were able to come up with these great documents that they need to be a little retranslated, right? So you can't say, all men are created equal, because if you did it in today's language, all humans or men and women are created equal, et cetera. But if we were to take those documents, and I've compared this, I love anybody to argue with me on this. If you were to take those documents and really look at them and really understand what they say, and you ran the country that way, you'd have a pretty good damn country. It's very similar to the Bible. If you were to take out just the words that Jesus what would it say? I guess is attributed is the attribution as he said them. We don't know what he said them. If you were to just take those red words, if you have this old King James Bible, and live your life that way, it'd be pretty good. So that kind of gives you the framework for Christianity, Jesus' words. And so I would judge a church or a person who pretends to be Christian, how far away from Jesus' words do they live? Do they speak? And the same thing could be said for America. And Donald Trump, if he understands the Bill of Rights, certainly doesn't agree with it. First Amendment, Second Amendment, I'm not going to argue with that. Second Amendment, kids, it's very simple. A well-regulated militia. Let's stop there. Regulations are right there. No, anybody who says you can't have regulations, completely wrong. Throw them out. What we need to argue about and talk are the regulations.
Dave, I just noticed on my phone, I can't really find this through this program I'm using right now, right here, but in Periscope, we had 17 people and somebody told you, fuck you and mind your business.
Oh, I love that. Listen, hey, Periscope, see, I like that. I really do. And I'll tell you why.
You might have been talking to me. I don't know.
No, they were talking to me.
Okay.
And I'll tell you why I like that. It means that whatever I said to them bothered them. And I'm only interested in two things when I talk. I'm interested in bothering people, and I'm interested if there are, in helping them find a way. So if I didn't help anybody find a way tonight, I did find somebody. And what was the exact quote again?
I think it was directed toward you or me, one or the other. It said, and he said, "Fuck you, mind your business."
Now, do you think he meant? Because you got to worry about it. When he said "mind my business," do you think he meant make mining my business?
I don't know.
I mean, I should.
It's hard to say because there's nothing. Maybe it's directed towards somebody else who is watching. I don't know, but look, your face is on it, and it says "fuck you" and mind your business. On the other hand, there's a heart from somebody else that you got a heart, so you might have a secret admirer.
The heart is from a woman, and the fuck you is from a man. And thank you. I always tell people when they say fuck you, I just tell them this. I said, thank you for being concerned about my sexual life. But it says it's okay the way it is. No, look, if you're going to take a stand, Brian, you know this, I know this, anyone's going to say, there's going to be people who disagree with you.
Right.
It comes with the territory. I've met people, nobody has. I don't expect everybody to agree with me. And if
there's 21 viewers from Periscope.
Good. No. Let's take a poll. How many people want to fuck me? No, he didn't want to fuck me. He wanted me to fuck myself.
Fucking business, basically.
I'll mind my fuck. But again, okay. Well, you know what?
And I apologize to that person if this is directed towards somebody else. No, I don't know.
We're not directing it to him. We're directing it. I think it's a very valid. That if you take a stand on something, right, there's going to be people who disagree with you, right? That's just going to be the way it is. And to think that you can kumbaya, it ain't going to work. Now, what I do think is fascinating to me is that I thought, I can be relatively reasonable when I want to. Okay, if that's why you turned in.
Depends on who that is. I don't know who that is. I can't. It's not updated.
Yes, well, you did. It could be anybody. I don't know. But no, the idea of it is this, Brian. Like I said,
I'm going to find out.
If you're, it could be. If it's never mind. If you're going to take a stand, you have to expect people to come back at you, right? But I always thought I could kind of talk, reason. But, you can't with some people, so that's what the conversation... Now,
Ben
Roseanne, is she...
Olbricht, or Dan Olbricht? Don Olbricht.
Oh, yeah, Don, yeah, well.
I like that. Oh, yeah, well.
Don's a great guy.
Okay.
So I would expect that comment from him. And, I'm glad we are not on regular TV, because then I couldn't say, fuck Donald Trump. But I can say it here, right?
Right.
But, when I say that... I have to be able to support it. I have a lot of reasons why I could say fuck Donald Trump. I don't know if the guy, mind your own business, though, was the interesting one. You know what, Brian? I think if I have a criticism of American people in general, they don't take politics seriously enough.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Politics affects each and every one of us. Even if you don't think it does at a national level, get involved at a local level. Politics is in your school. It affects your school system. It affects everything about us. And we tend to say, well, that's just politics, or all politicians are bad.
You had this discussion politics.
And again, I'm not, I'm very grateful. And I've mentioned this name before. It goes out. I'm going to give a shout out tonight to Mrs. Wisham, who I despised in ninth grade, my civics teacher, because she was a right-wing, Christian zealot, but she taught us civics, and that's why I know what I know, in that area. And I don't think enough people know that today. Like I said, if you're going to say to me, we're not going to discuss gun regulations, and I say, well, then you don't know the Second Amendment, right? Or in the First Amendment, if you think that the government can censor the press, then you don't know the First Amendment. Or if you think a Christian church should be given precedence or power over any other church, then you don't know the First Amendment. Or if you say, which a number of states are doing that, you are going to limit peaceful protest, then you don't understand the First Amendment. So, understand that first, and then we'll talk about it. Now, tonight when they said about the burning, not the looting, but the burning and stuff, unfortunately, that comes with the protest. So if you believe in protesting, you have to realize that not every protest is going to be peaceful. You try to make it peaceful. You urge people to be peaceful, but you have to realize that it's not. Being ignored by the host of a... Can you read that for me?
Sure, that's Anthony. Anthony, and he's been on his big ignores by the host of a channel. Every time you come and can be a bit bad for one's self-esteem. For example, I can only get others to comment on my comments on Real Coffee with Scott Adams.
Well, I'm not going to get into other shows, but I do know this. I'm not a coffee drinker, so I think the problem comes down to I don't know. I do think tonight, Brian, and I'm going to make a criticism myself, we got away, and I just like to end with that. Let's just make sure that we get any comments in. Now, I've been looking tonight. Most of them are not really asking us to comment.
Right, we haven't had too many questions tonight. And that's okay, because, commentary is important too. That means we're going to listen to them.
I'm not saying that. What I am saying is I just want to make sure, one of my goals is that any question that comes up, that we make an attempt to answer. Again, I want to make this qualifying thing. Brian and I talked about this today earlier. We're not experts, okay? I consider myself a person who cares passionately about America. I always have, usually coming at it from the outsider, because that's usually many times where I find myself.
That's Emily.
Yeah, and there it is. You know what? I'm not saying it because I was a teacher. I'm not saying it because my mother was a teacher. I'm not saying it because my grandmother was a teacher. I'm not saying it because my son is a teacher. I'm not saying it because there's probably a good chance that one of my grandchildren will turn out to be a teacher. But to me, in a secular society, teachers are the most important thing after family. They shape us. We all have them, good and bad. The only thing I would say to some people, bad teachers teach you too. They teach you what not to do. And I think, to expect there aren't bad teachers, but the good ones, they live and carry, we could all do that. I'm not going to do that. I mean, I have shout outs basically at every grade I was ever in. Oh, question. Does your editor influence your writing? I like that question. Is that directed to me?
I don't know. I really don't know.
Well, I will say this just generally. Yes. And we'll move on now. Not the way people think. Basically, the hardest job in writing is to be an editor. And here's why. You have more chance of making mistakes. Plus, you want to keep the writer's flow, if you will, or their style. It's very hard to edit someone's work because none of us are stylistically identical. So when you're saying that, but people say, they kept this out of the paper, they kept that out of the paper. My 10 years now. I mean, both as an editor, I didn't keep anything out. Did I reject stories? I say, go back and rewrite it. I'd say, I don't think you have enough facts on this. I said, are you absolutely sure? So The other thing would be, it's like saying, okay, that's a really good point. I would love if we lived in America that didn't need policemen. I would love that, right? We don't. You're always going to need policemen. With writers, because you can't edit your own stuff, you're always going to need editors. So do they change it? Do you argue? Yes, I get a brief story to show you how bad it can get. One time, when I was working for the press, when I was working for the press of Atlantic City, I was so angry with what an editor did to my story, I kicked at the door, and I forgot that the door was glass, and it cost me $225. So yeah, editors can get under your skin. I didn't need to kick the door, but I did. So, anybody wants to do that, get a hold of me. You can reach me anywhere. I love to talk that stuff. Again, not dissing the question. I think it's important, and I'm going to bring it back to Trump. Okay, does Donald Trump does not respect writers? Donald Trump does not respect editors. But you know what Donald Trump doesn't respect more than that? The truth. Donald Trump doesn't respect the truth. And I would submit, again, unfortunately, more people today, where they get their news is from the internet. That's the number one source now. TV is second, radio is third, and newspapers are fourth, and news magazines even behind that. And the two sources still to get news, because they are edited, because they can be longer, are newspapers and news magazines. And fewer people have the time, they'll say, or whatever, to read them, etc. So when people talk about the media, I always ask them what media. You know what they end up saying? Either the internet or TV.
Well, I do like the TV journalist, because you never know what's going to happen at that one moment when you're being interviewed.
What? Reporting or being commentators or what?
Live commentary, live questioning, I think, is like, for example, when you have the press conferences. I mean, they're very helpful. Dan Rather helped change things,
Again, we're in a new age, like everything else. In the I'll do a little quick history lesson here. In the 1960s, everything changed again, right? It's one of those periods of change, and we're in another one now. So they got this thing called new journalism. And what happened was there were some great writers out there who were very frustrated. Hunter Thompson, Tom Wolfe, the list goes on and on, right? Columnists like Mike Royko and Jimmy Breslin, and women, they would say, we can't do this. People don't realize that Gloria Steinem was an author before she was a feminist. She was a great writer. And Joan, another one. And they kind of changed it, but not necessarily for the better. Everybody wanted to be a Tom Wolfe or a Hunter Thompson, and only Hunter Thompson is Hunter Thompson. And Tom Wolfe is, but by the same token, TV news changed. There'll never be a Walter Cronkite again. Never. And here's why. Walter paid his dues as a newspaper person first, and he had the best mentor in business, right? And he in turn became the best mentor. And after Edward R. Murrow mentored Walter, Walter mentored Dan Rather, and then the cult of personality came in. And that's everywhere. Mm-hmm. It's in movies. When you argue movies today, a lot of movie stars, it's about the money, right? Athletes, we saw that. Michael Jordan, remember his famous quote, Republicans buy sneakers too. It certainly is part of Trump being there. So we're in this cult of personality. So when you say Dan Rather, belongs to another time, right? You might as well be talking about people who wore white wigs, powdered wigs, right? Unfortunate. Now, does that mean we don't have any good of? And that there's. Look, anybody out there who's young or has someone who's writing, if you can't handle rejection, what was that comment again? I should stay out of the fucking. I forget. Whatever it was. No, it's that kind of thing. If you can't handle rejection, you can't be a writer. You can't. Or you just do. They were there. Yeah, I have no idea where all the writers went after leaving Dallas Times, shut down. Look, and no offense to the Dallas Times, but the real problem is, and this is what worries me about journalism. Well, on the top end, you have Donald Trump saying it's meaningless, and people listen to Donald Trump. Huntley Brinkley, same school as Walter Cronkite. So he's there. But what happens is the real loss is at the local level, Brian. You live in Bridgeton, New Jersey. I mean, well, right outside of Bridgeton, New Jersey. Is that correct?
Right.
Does it have a local paper?
Not really, no.
No, not. There's no really in there. They don't.
Well, it's you go to the grocery store, there might be some goofy.
No, that's not a newspaper.
Right.
That's a circular or
Right.
weekly. A newspaper, a definition of a newspaper, it prints at least 5 days a week.
No,
5 to 7 days.
no.
No. And does it have politicians in Bridgeton?
We have a mayor, council.
Yeah, politicians, right? Right.
Yeah.
Now, nobody. Now, I know the mayor, Albert Kelly, and I know the councilman, so I want to make it clear I'm talking about hypothetical, not real people. So there are many Bridgeton, New Jerseys now where there's no newspaper covering the local government. Okay. That's a bad thing. Newspapers were designed to be a counterweight to the government, right? That's why Donald Trump doesn't like them. It's why no politician liked them. John Kennedy hated them, but he realized that he wanted to be a writer. It's interesting. If you look at the presidents, Teddy Roosevelt, who loved the press, hated and loved. John Kennedy, who hated and loved. Barack Obama, who hated and loved. They all have in common. They liked to write. They knew what it was to write. And Kennedy just charmed them. Maybe there is some truth to the idea that I think some journalists gave a pass for being the first black president. But Barack didn't deserve a lot of criticism. He did a good job. People are irate. Well, what do you criticize the Nats because they should have won one more ball game when they won the championship? I mean, that's not the way it works in the real world. But back to this local, what's really bad about local newspapers is this: a corrupt politician, a bad politician, does not start out in the U.S. Senate. Would you agree?
Correct.
You know where they start out? The local zoning board.
Right. Or
Local
school board.
And then move to the council, and then to mayor, and then to maybe the county, right? And then the state, and then up. So what happens is, that was a kind of a place where you could kind of, what would I say? Not all the people. Yeah, the people don't always vote, right? I mean, we know that. It's still what you get. But so newspapers are kind of that counterweight. They would discover those people at that level, and they're not there anymore. And but it doesn't bother me with the other. Now, it bothers me at the local level. But at the other is that my grandchildren, Owen and Audrey, to my knowledge, I'll have to ask them this next time. Or what is our Australian friend still there, or did he check out?
I don't know if Keith's there or not. I can't really
Keith,
tell.
If you see him, forget giving him money, but ask him this question. I can ask him on the phone next time. I don't know, to my knowledge, except in school, if they've ever held a newspaper in their hand, right? And that's so horrible. No, I put them up. They're very knowledgeable in terms of they get it on their iPod, their iPad. They talk at home about it. So there's many ways to do that. To say it's sort of like cursive writing. Do we really need to write cursive?
He's here.
I think. Hey, so we don't need to necessarily do that, but we do need journalists.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because think about this, people. If there was no reporting done about Donald Trump, he'd be worse. One of the jobs of newspaper now, and the thing that fascinates me about, they print false news. What kind of false news? Trump is a false news factory, right? And there's a lot of, that's another fallacy nobody reads. I mean, we say that. Yet, do you realize? I think more books are sold today. It's not a question of reading; it's a question of what you read, and it's not even a question of what you read. It's can you think? I want to show everybody tonight. Now I've been waiting for the right moment. My newest purchase. I'm so happy. So maybe I'll do 5 minutes of the show with this on and off, isn't it? If anybody can see this, Brian, can you see it?
Absolutely.
And what does it say, Brian?
Well, we see the STD for sure. It says, I can't quite read the first word. I let the infection spread. Don't let the infection spread.
Donald.
This is weird. We're kind of stuck on one frame, Dave. We were doing okay for 2 hours. You're good. You're good.
That's good now. Laughingly. Now, I have a right to wear this, correct, Brian?
You have the right to wear it, yes.
You know, people with MAGA hats upset me, but this upsets them. So if I'm going to wear this, I might get punched in the nose. That's what I got here. No, I mean that causes irateness. But again, back to I'm not saying we're tough, but if you're going to take a stand on anything, and see Donald Trump isn't a strong person in that sense. I mean, he doesn't want anybody to criticize him. Well, has there ever been a president who wasn't criticized? No, George Washington was the most beloved president until he'd been there about 6 days, and the newspapers started on him. Goes with the territory. We come back around. One of the things I'd like to throw out tonight, we've only got a few more minutes, but I'd like to ask viewers, or maybe I'll even post it on the blog or the Facebook page or both.
I'm going to show them the 3 or 4 different things we have after you get done speaking. I have your blog here and all.
We can go talk. But tonight, if you look at this show, anybody who goes back in history, why the hell they would, but they look at it, they're going to see Dave Price responding in his one area he's very passionate about, and 2 that he understands. One, the passionate area is getting rid of Donald Trump and making America better. The 2 things I understand are education and journalism. It lends itself to that. But we're not. So we tend to talk in those ways, right? But other people, that's not that. If they have something, I mean, questions, please. Comments are great. Make all the comments you want. But I like questions simply because we can try to address them. And even if there's something you really think we should address, not just at the moment, you know what I mean? Like, send it to us and say, can you do this as part of your show? School newspapers, exactly.
Yeah, because there's a lot of pressure on the kids.
I got to comment on that for a moment. I know this will come as a surprise to a lot of people, maybe because I'm so what should I say, laid back now. I've been kind of a pain in the ass all my life, and so I was editor of the school newspaper, not the school newspaper, but the sports page for 2 years, and I was the first person in a long time to be summoned to the office and told I was going to be suspended for a headline I wrote. And I thought it was a good headline, and I'll throw it up to the people. It was about the girls' tennis team, and I wrote, "Girls Lost After Upper Births," right? Well, in 1967, I guess you didn't use the word girls and lust and births as bad at that point. But if I challenged that, the Supreme Court would have said, no, you're going to lose, because school newspapers, they are given what should I say? The schools have a right more than certainly the President of the United States to determine what goes in their school papers. So I always find that interesting.
Yeah. And on their local cable TV, they do that too. Right.
Yeah. Again, can you imagine? No, let me do a both of these here. It could put license of any TV or radio show that he wanted to, right? And his supporters, remember, Donald Trump isn't always going to be there. If you give that power to the president, Joe Biden can do it on your stations, right? So I think whoever designed the First Amendment was really thinking. They really were. They looked at some of the big problems that are still problems today: religion, protest, right to assemble, right to petition the government, the unknown one, for redress of grievances. In that First Amendment, they hit a lot that makes America America. And what they were really saying is government, they said Congress, because they never really believed that the president would have the powers that the president has. There's a lot of history to that. They thought the president, that would be just a figurehead, but they really thought and the modern, there's a thing out with there's a really good, let's do this. We don't seem to be getting a lot of questions, which is fine. I've run my mouth more than I should have, but you gave good questions. You said you're going to do some things. Why don't we kind of up a little bit with you talking about these things you wonder.
Right, and I guess I'll go full screen here for a second, Dave, because I think you're freezing. Mine isn't, because I'm the host. Not that I'm more important. I'm just saying that the bandwidth
So
is better on this
are
end.
you are you worried about me taking over the show because I'm far more popular than you? But so
It would
my
be
voice
better
goes
if you
down.
did. I'd relax. But no, this is a very
You're-
relaxing show, folks. But I did want to show you the different platforms that we're on. And again, I would appreciate if you would subscribe to the various channels and platforms, or give us a like, whatever. If you didn't like it, put dislike, and that's okay too. But I would like to show you what we have here. This is Dave's blog, and it's called Divided We Stand here. I don't know if it's all visible here, but I'm trying. Let me move this out a little bit about there. Okay, we have Divided We Stand. A lot of people are, writing some blogs here. We did post the site address last week. I'll put that in the description. So that's the blog. If you want to write something, do it. Dave is, game for that. This is our page on Facebook, which is really the group page. And you can see here a lot of people are busy posting. Last week we had something like 35 members. And what do you know? Now we have 329. So it's growing, and we're really, really happy about that. So if you're unfamiliar with our group page, please look us up. It's Divided We Stand. There are a few Divided We Stands out there, so you have to be able to discern between them. But ours is a very popular one, so that's a good one to go to. And if you want to leave comments, you can do it there. Now the third one here will be actually our weakest link. Well, maybe not the weakest, but this is from YouTube. We only have 29 subscribers right now, but we'll get more. But we have a lot of videos here, and you could check them out. It's basically an archive of all of our videos, and we hope to expand on YouTube. We're not there yet, but it just so happens that Facebook is where it kind of works right now. And then finally, we are on in Russia, and there you see tonight's video posted. Not too many people watching there, but at least we are there. So anyway, those are the platforms, and we hope that you'll check it out, because there's something for everybody, and we really want to expand our base. So Dave, any parting comments for our audience?
Okay. We're not actors, Brian and I, but one of the reasons I think we do get along, we agree on most things. But basically, we're talking about reality. Brian's always, look, he's sleepy. I'm not sleepy. That's the difference.
I've been up since 5:30. Okay.
Yeah. 5:30 p.m.
No, I can't get to sleep. I wake up at 5:30, go to the bathroom, I'm up.
Now, you know what? We could really, you said YouTube is weak. If you would video yourself every time you go to the bathroom,
Right.
I think people would be interested in that. No, seriously. I think what if I were a viewer, I'm trying to put myself in this. I kind of like, and Paul didn't join us tonight, but when he does, Paul's the
He did text us. He says he's sorry he was late. He couldn't come on.
That's but I'm just saying. So I think you do want to have this, and so we're really performing just by being ourselves. We both, I think I can speak for you. We both. I use the word hate. I don't like to. I don't care. I hate Donald Trump and everything he stands for, and I hate the Republicans who enable him. And I'm not real fond of the people that vote for him. Okay. Having said that, I still believe that Donald Trump has been stopped by a couple institutions that did count. The Supreme Court has come through a few times. The Army or the military has come through a few times. And you know what else has stopped Donald Trump? The people on the street.
Yes, more than anything. Absolutely.
Right. So there are
They
ways
voted in 2018, and now that we have the protests, absolutely. I agree with you.
So there's always balances on evil. And so I can be optimistic. But Brian, I also like the fact that there's plenty of reason not to be optimistic. And I call you Mr. Doom and Gloom. But you present, not with the same information, you present for people who are worried. Now, I'm not saying I'm not worried, right? I'm saying that I still believe in the end that we will prevail. And by we, I mean the people who do not want Donald Trump there first, who believe that after Donald Trump, the next biggest threat to America is not Russia, is not international terrorists. It's the Republican Party. And the third biggest threat to America, again, I should have said communism or socialism with them. And the third biggest threat to America is not Arab terrorists or,
unbridled capitalism.
Well, that's there too.
Mm-hmm.
The biggest threat to America are hate groups, whether it's the Klan, whether it's the what is it now? What's the new group? Boys.
That's a Boogaloo or something like that.
The Boogaloo Boys, right?
It's like Posse Comitatus, basically.
And, if you make the big bed, you put everybody there in the big bed. You got Donald Trump, you got the Republican Party, you've got the hate groups, and I'm going to throw in tonight, just because I feel like doing, but I think you've got closed-minded evangelicals who believe their way or the highway, and they're in that bed. And I want to come back to the point. I want to close with what my dad. I mentioned it earlier. I said Father's Day. Shout out to my dad. He's been dead a long time. Best dad I could have had. Might not have been the best dad for you or anybody else. And he said, and I want to repeat this and emphasize it. You are who you hang with. And I would say tonight, I would prefer to hang with Joe Biden than I would with Donald Trump. I would prefer to hang tonight with the Democratic Party rather than the Republican Party. I would rather hang with Black Lives Matter, Antifa, any of those groups than I would with the KKK or the Aryan Brotherhood or the Babalu or whatever they're called, boys, right? And I would rather be tolerant of all religions rather than be an evangelical who says, I am the way, I have the light, let's do it my way. And my way involves backing Donald Trump. And for any Christian out there tonight, I'm going to say to you, I can't think of a less Christian person in America than Donald Trump. So my question to you is, if you are a Christian, and I believe my dad was right, you are who you hang with, then you got to find somebody new to hang with.
Right. Well said. Well said. Well, Dave, I appreciate you coming on again and again and again. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I really am sorry about the opening problems with the bandwidth. I think that on YouTube, even though they were separate shows, in other words, it'll be stitched together. So on YouTube, I'll post it on Facebook, so it'll seem as one show, I think. So hopefully.
See, if I were Donald Trump, I would say you were out to get me. But I realize you're just an incompetent bumbler who really doesn't know what they're doing.
No, I think what it really is that, I do have a lot of bandwidth, but for some reason, it just, when you're uploading a lot of stuff, it's just...
all that stuff. Have you noticed tonight he sat in the dark all night? Correct, ladies and gentlemen? Have you seen his hands all night?
I was going like this and waving to everybody.
Yeah, but that's one hand. What were you doing with the other hand, Brian? Why is it dark in that room? Were you doing things that we shouldn't think about or know about?
Judy, I hear you there. Can you just take him away? He gets worse as it gets later.
Well, she's, but that's when the time for the show ends, ladies and gentlemen, when I am completely independent, except when my wife says do something and I do it. So she just gave me the high sign to cut the show. See you next week, everybody. I'm out of here.
All right. He's out of here, folks. All right, what should I leave you with? I'll leave you with something. Why not? All right, folks. I thank you for staying. Everybody, Keith, Gary, and if I haven't mentioned your name, Anthony, everybody, I really do appreciate Roseanne, Emily. Yeah, there's a lot of you there, and I just can't remember anybody. So thank you. And if I don't remember your name, Don't say your name. I'm sorry, but I care. See ya.